welcome to the Mental Health Gaming After Hours podcast. I'm Stu, and I'm joined by the man who makes any lockdown a breeze and a delight, and that's Brad. How are you doing, Brad?
No, you've got the wrong Brad.
Oh?
Yeah, you've got the
really?
wrong Brad. Oh, yeah, I'm the one who's cynical and miserable and doesn't let people get a word in edgeways. That's the Brad I am. Don't know what Brad you're thinking of.
Oh, I'll give him a call. Hang on. All right. Brad? Yeah, mate. Yeah, no, I've got this other clown on the thing. Yeah, all right. Okay, I'll make do. All right, yeah, bye. Yeah, no, he's all right. He's cool.
That's the least offensive C word I've been called. Which will be relevant when I speak about what I've been watching.
Cool. What pop culturally interesting things have you been watching, Bradley?
Yeah, I suppose it is still relevant enough. I've been watching The Boys on Amazon Prime.
Cool.
Wow. I don't know how that originally passed me by because it's really good. Really good. Not, it's not as good, or I didn't get into it as much initially as I did Cobra Kai, which I thought was some of the best TV of late over the past couple of years. But yeah, The Boys is really good. And for anyone who doesn't know, it centres around the idea, what if superheroes were more human than they're ever depicted to be in movies. Now, I know sort of like in the MCU, they've tried to humanise a lot of them. They've all got their faults and stuff like that, but they're inherently all still really great guys and they're good guys and everything. Whereas this goes for what if our superheroes were absolute assholes and had all the foibles that we do as humans, but had the superpowers to go with them. And it's a really interesting concept behind it, where even early on, something bad happens to someone's fiance from a superhero, and he gets off the chance to get revenge because they're a corporation. It's done by a corporation and it's all marketing, so they try and brush it under the carpet with what was it, $45,000 in compensation or something like that, ridiculously small amount, but they try and fob him off with compensation as long as he signs an NDA, and then you get the most realistic. No, he's not. I'm not even going to pretend. And then you get Cole Urban putting on one of the worst Cockney accents I've ever heard, turn up and offer him a way to get his vengeance back on the superhero who did it and the company behind it all. And it all kind of escalates from there. Really well, really good stuff. And what I liked about it is that not one single person in this show is good.
Yeah.
And not one single person in this show is inherently bad. Even the main superhero, Homelander, who is, I suppose, the Captain America / Superman trope of a superhero. He's the leader of the group and everything like that. It's implied that he's evil, pretty much. He's an evil guy, and he's done this. He uses his position to sort of get women to have sex with him. It's implied that he's raped a character. He does something quite vile to an aeroplane full of people for political benefits and stuff like that. But you still get these moments of humanity within him, and you see personal pain he's suffering, and it's not all just he's doing it for the corporate good, or he's doing it. There is a personal pain there to him, and it's quite subtly done. And the hero of the piece, I suppose, who starts off as this naive character whose fiance is taken from him in a tragic way, starts off as like he's wide-eyed and innocent, but then as it goes on, you can see him turning, and you can see that actually morally he's not great. And then you've got kind of this literally a shining light, which I suppose is really brilliant on the nose writing. This shining light of a superhero who again has a crisis of faith. And she does quite a few questionable things. And again, she's not perfect. And everyone's written with real great subtlety. And I just really enjoyed it. And then even Cole Urban's disgraceful Cockney accent kind of made it. I initially watched it and thought, Jesus Christ, Couldn't they just got someone British if they're going to go for that? You know, get Billy Jones in the role if you really got to, or Jason Statham, whatever. But I was actually thinking back, going, no, this works because essentially superheroes are cartoonish. They're fantastical, regardless of whether you're trying to portray them as good or bad. So the over-the-top Cockney accent works, and I found it almost endearing. And you're going to get your bleep word, your bleeping tool out in a bit. But the way he casually drops into every other sentence and stuff like that, I think shows he knows how some people talk in the UK, especially in the sort of like the London and the South East area, the way we will gradually call people just like, oh, that and this and stuff like that. And he does it really well. And with the over-the-top Cockney accent, it just works. And it's even called out. Go on.
Sorry, I was going to say, I thought he was just using that accent, and he's just using his own accent until they told us otherwise. Yeah. Because it's hilarious. Sorry, go on.
They had to make the point of, like, we've got to get across that he's definitely British, so he does the whole Spice Girls bit as well. Yeah. So it's like, no, look, see, he is British, and when he goes to see his wife's sister-in-law, he goes to see his sister-in-law, and she offers him, we've got the English stuff. It's like, right, okay, yeah, we get the point, he's British. But it's the accent that I suppose the American audience would expect to a degree. And Cole Urban, I actually read, he's had so unlucky with a lot of the roles he's taken, where it's just bombed, but he's been like generally one of the best things in it. Like the Doom film was awful, but I actually really liked Cole Urban in it. I thought he was in Dread as well, really good in that. And he's such a fine actor, but he's always got bum roles. I'm hoping this one continues to be a success for him.
Yeah, I was going to say it's good that you mentioned Dredd, because I was going to say The Boys kind of reminds me of RoboCop in a way. It's not as satirical, not as overly satirical, but it's the same sort of fascist America that's been, that's all about advertising and glitz and stuff like that. And of course, RoboCop was strongly influenced, let's say, by Dredd, and Dredd was played by Carl Urban, so he clearly likes playing in that kind of role and that kind of character, and it really works dead well. And it would be a good show without him, but he makes it brilliant, I think.
Oh yeah, I can't wait for him to be on screen. I honestly, I don't think I've heard the word mentioned more casually as many times as I have in season 1 of The Boys. It's just 4 or 5 times an episode, and they even called him out on it. I love how Huey calls him out on it on an occasion, and he tries to like downplay it. He talks about how, why do we use it as an insult when this is what they are? And it's just like, why do you use all the time? And he's like, yeah, it's so self-aware. It is so self-aware of what it's trying to be. And it apes comic book movies really, really well.
Yes, and
alongside that, I watched Brightburn a few weeks ago. And this is everything that Brightburn should have been, where it examines superheroes, but what if superheroes had proper flaws, not just like movie flaws where Tony Stark, he was a bit of a drunk, but he's a good guy now. Rather than, Tony Stark, he's got all this money, all this power, all this technology. He's an alcoholic that's got lots of demons. What if he actually used that for bad? Which is a story I would like to see. Whereas this goes, well, what if they do this? And I don't know if it was on the nose. I don't know how I felt about it, actually. One scene in particular where the Deep gets raped was interesting, and I'm still not sure how I felt about it, because I don't like the turning the tables trope in TV that, he used his position of power to take advantage of someone sexually, so what if we turn the tables? Because that doesn't shine the right light on it.
I agree.
I get why they did it, but I felt that of all of it, I think that's the one thing that was a real misstep. Him being ostracised and sent to Idaho, because best, sweep what he did under the carpet as best we could and use him as a scapegoat, that's fine. The out of context, one scene rape yeah, that didn't work. And not just because, how dare they reverse it, because I think it can work if done right. It just wasn't done right.
Yeah, I agree. You need character growth. They need to see the consequences of their actions, because like a person, if they had that happen to them, would just double down on their bad behaviour anyway. It just they would think that sort of thing is permitted, and that you give what you receive type of thing. So yeah, no, I agree.
Yeah, and how does it go from someone who's strong enough? I don't want to say strong enough, but is forceful enough and believing in himself enough that he can sexually abuse a naive young woman, to then just have the tables turned like that? It doesn't happen. They didn't do enough development of why that can happen. I know there's a scene where he's at a petrol garage and someone throws and shouts abuse at him. That's not enough to call someone. Being ostracised and sent somewhere, that's not enough in that time frame. We're moving into a second season, which is great. And I think that scene could well have worked if they had continued to undermine that character to the point where he is completely broken in season 2, and then go for that scene where he's taken advantage of. Not that, he took advantage of someone sexually, so he's now going to be raped. That doesn't work. And it's a shame. I say it's probably the only major misstep of the entire season for me.
Yeah, no, I agree. But as you say, other than that, yeah, it's really fantastic. And from one fantastic TV show to another, I'm watching The Mandalorian, like a lot of people are, and I think that is absolutely fantastic. And yeah, it's just the main reason is nothing to do with Star Wars, weirdly enough. The main reason is that it's just really good. Like, the production values are great, all the actors are excellent, they're perfectly cast for the roles. They don't even have to be amazing actors, they just, they're the right people in the right place, and they've got the right showrunners. But also the format is really great. So it's like a Saturday morning TV show from the 80s. So it's really, really similar to stuff like the A-Team, Knight Rider, Street Hawk, Airwolf, all that kind of stuff, where there's a very, very slim narrative thread that runs through the entire series, but it's not really important. It's just a way of, transitioning the characters from one space and one situation to the next. So like the A-Team were constantly on the run from the law, although that didn't stop them, producing these mega vehicles in sheds and making a massive ruckus somehow. So yeah, no, it's got that great thing of just being mainly episodic with a through line that will probably only be wrapped up when they get right to the end and they can be bothered to just go, oh yeah, there we are, neat bow on it. And the number of episodes is great. It's 8, and they tend to be around 30 minutes. So it's just the perfect sort of bite-sized sort of adventure series that we don't get a lot of. And even though it's got heavy action and can be dark in places, it's generally quite light as well. It's played for fun. There are stakes and some of them are high, but it's not like, the entire planet's going to be destroyed level of high. So if people haven't touched it before, if they're like Star Wars skeptics or they haven't got Disney Plus yet or anything like that, it's well worth a watch, even if you're not a Star Wars fan, because it's just genuinely good TV.
So how does it work as a complete standalone then? Because I've watched the Star Wars films. I don't think I've really watched like any of the spin-offs, like the Clone Wars or anything like that. I definitely haven't watched Solo. Haven't watched that because that just looked dreadful. Anyway, but do I miss anything by sort of like not getting the lore completely? I know Luke Skywalker is Darth Vader. I know Rey's, but I don't know like who the complete backstories of this particular villain or anything like that. So how does it work for someone who's not completely into it?
Really well, I would say. You'll get more from it if you know the background and know the ancillary stuff and the legends and the cartoons and stuff, but you don't need to know them, because what they do is it's got like, okay, so you've got this story that's like Lone Wolf and Cub, the Japanese samurai story, with a Ronin sort of traversing the land and looking after a child, and it's kind of mixed with that and Kung Fu, the series where he walks the land and learns things and gets into adventures and all of those sorts of lone hero on the move getting bounties and stuff like that. And it then kind of textures Star Wars over the top, but in a really good way. So it's not like it kind of goes, well, we want our cake and eat it too. We want to be able to make it for everybody, but also make it for all Star Wars geeks. And then they kind of ham-fist it together. It's done in a way that you understand everything from context. So when they bring in sort of like pit droids that are in The Phantom Menace, when you see them, they're just droids. But if you've seen The Phantom Menace and you know them, then you're like, oh, it's pit droid. So it kind of it's just there as kind of a skin in a way. And there are things that are important to Star Wars quote unquote lore, but the best of Star Wars has always been very light on lore anyway. It's not really about that. It's more about the characters and about, the extreme adventures. So like Indiana Jones, you don't really know anything about him. All you need to know is that he's a teacher, a professor, and he punches people and gets artifacts. And as long as you know that, then if you know more about him from the Young Adventures or whatever it's called, or books or whatever, fair enough, but you don't need to. So that's a long way of saying it works for everybody, I would say.
It's just you talking about Indiana Jones, but if they remade Indiana Jones today, it'd be a controversial film, because we'd need to know why the Nazis are mean people, and we've got to give them a chance to speak, because we've got to hear from both sides.
Oh God, bloody hope not.
Because it's controversial to punch a Nazi. There you go.
Yeah,
face off.
Yeah, definitely. The Indiana Jones thing brings up a really good argument. Probably not for today, about is like a franchise, like in inverted commas again, a franchise. Can you make one? Can you ever have something that can just go on perpetually? Or do some things just have the right balance and characteristics of actors and the time period and everything, so that they were perfect for that time and you have to just move on? And I think there's a really good argument in there we should probably pick up at some point.
Oh yeah, definitely, because I guarantee you could not remake Back to the Future.
I was thinking Back to the Future, yeah.
Could not be done. Even though it's a time travel series, you couldn't do it. Just physically now, you could not do it. It wouldn't work, because it's so full of holes as a film series, plot-wise, but you don't care, because Michael J. Fox and Christopher Lloyd are absolutely outstanding in their roles. So is Crispin Glover as well. And they make it. And yeah, it wouldn't work remade, especially as we suppose best mention that Michael J. Fox has retired now from acting due to his worsening Parkinson's, but he brought so much charisma to that role that he is Marty McFly, and I would join the masses in burning down Hollywood if they tried to replace him as Marty McFly in a reboot.
Yeah, agreed.
But talking of films that are sort of just quickly set in, or would only work in certain time periods, it's looking at sort of war-based films again, and sort of the modern way of doing them, where it's less about the actual war itself and more about the people's individual stories. And I've spoke about Jojo Rabbit before, but my son wanted to watch it as he was shown a clip of it at school for history. I think it was to show him the way they dressed or something like that in that period. So I think it was just an excuse for his teacher to tell everyone about Jojo Rabbit, in all fairness. But anyway,
good on him.
Yeah. Because it's absolutely outstanding. And he watched it, and a discussion came up about sort of when they the questions asked in the film, who won the war, and sort of it led to the question going, who did win the war? Because obviously we're always told we won the war, the British won the war. Well, we never. It's the Allies won the war. But if you look back now, you look at where we are in the world now, and you look back and go, did we win the war, or did we just delay fascism a little bit? Because the Allies, which includes the UK, America, etc., technically won the war, but they are very fascist countries now. So whereas you look at Germany now, and it's a peaceful country. They're, on the whole, they're still left leaning. I know there is some right-wing uprisings in certain areas of Germany and things like that. But it did lead to the question of discussing who won the war. And can you declare the winner outright based on what happened, the end at 1945? Or do you have to now look 80 years into the future and go, look at where we are now. So started raising some interesting discussion points with my son in what is essentially a Taika Waititi comedy drama thing, but asks so many interesting questions.
Yeah.
And also, I still blubbed, even though I knew it was coming, and I've seen it a couple of times, I knew it was coming, I still blubbed as soon as Jojo saw his mother's feet hanging.
Yeah.
It is still one of the most shocking moments in recent cinema for me.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's I read that, like, I was like, oh, some people say that it's crap, and I was like, hey. So I looked up the review scores, and there were loads of critics who were saying that it was superficial and sentimental, and it's like, no. Like, I'm the least sentimental, but I can't stand sentimentality. Like, I really, for me, it's just saccharine, complete horse. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I steer clear of it as much as I possibly can, and whenever I see it, I kind of look at it with a sneer on my face. But no, totally did not get that vibe. I thought it was genuine. Like, it felt properly genuine, that film. Like, all the responses in it were natural. And also it was shocking, but not done to shock. So it was like, yes, these things in wartime, they happen like that. They happen instantly and you don't expect them, And that's what it wasn't done as shock value. It was done because it was to show you that, wartime is shocking. It's dehumanizing and destructive, and it's random, and all of the awful things that you don't want in life. So I agree with you. I think it has immense power, that film. I think it's genuinely really important.
Yeah. And what I came from it, I mean, one of the arguments of, it wasn't a review, it was a debate I saw about it, was talking about the demise of the mother. And it was like, well, you knew the writing was on the wall when the Gestapo turned up and started searching the house, and then they was helped by Sam Rockwell's character, who I think is the best character in that film, by the way. And you knew it was going to happen. It was always focusing on her shoe, so you knew something was going to happen with that. And I was my point to that is, one, her being hung absolutely had nothing to do with her harbouring a Jew girl. Absolutely nothing to do with that, which I thought was a really clever subversion.
Yeah.
Because it was built up, especially with the Gestapo turning up and searching, it was built up in a way that she was going to get caught out for that, and that's what was going to do it. But they completely subverted that, and it was all to do with the leaflet drops that she was doing. That's why she was killed. And that's why she was hung and displayed. And the focusing the shots on the shoes throughout the film, yes, it was obvious that something was going to happen with those, and it probably wasn't going to be pleasant. But it still didn't take away from the shock. It enhanced that shock, because as soon as you saw it, was the same time Jojo noticed it. And the way, the tonal shift of that film at the exact moment was gut-wrenching. And you felt probably exactly the way Jojo felt when he saw them, and it was just like you felt something sick deep within your stomach, and that's what got me there.
Yeah.
And the way they build up characters with elements of comedy, but then sort of like in comedy you can show so much more nuance than you can in a drama. And I will maintain Schindler's List is one of the best films ever made about what the war was like for. Especially for Jews, little bit of glamorization, I suppose, but not overall. I thought it actually handled it really well. But in saying that, Jojo Rabbit, Taika Waititi done a brilliant job of using comedy to allow us to feel for those characters in a way where you let your guard down, which you don't ever do in Schindler's List. You never let your guard down in that film. But in Jojo Rabbit, it all happens after you've been laughing at the ridiculousness of the rules that were in Nazi Germany and the way if someone Heil Hitlers, you have to Heil Hitler back. And you have this scene that could have been done in a couple of minutes, take 3 times as long because of all the Heil Hitler in, and which I thought was an absolutely brilliant satire on what it would have been like. And use that to really lower your guard. Oh, yeah, it's quite funny. And then, bang, it's got you. Absolutely brilliantly written. And I think the point, bizarrely, was lost by a lot of professional reviewers. And that's what shocked me. A lot of professionals completely missed the point of what that film was. And I don't know if it was because it was called Jojo Rabbit. And I don't know what they was expecting. But, yeah, it was just really weird that the point was completely missed.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it was. By some of them, and I think it'll be seen as a classic as the years go on, a bit like Shawshank, you know. That it's popular, it reaches people, but without being patronising, but at the same time not being distant, elitist, or pretentious or whatever at the same time. So it's a I don't know if it's a flawless film, but it's pretty close to being a flawless film in my opinion.
Here's the thing. The best films are not flawless. If you made a flawless film, that is not, to me, a good film. It's a by the numbers, gotta get it perfect film. And you can write those, don't get me wrong. But it needs to have flaws. Because, again, as we spoke about with The Boys and stuff like that, and the superheroes having the flaws that we all have, we can't relate to perfection. We need flaws to be able to relate. Now, I'm not saying you write an inherently bad film. But when you've got elements where there are flaws, you can relate better. And you've got to look at another example. I think Shaun of the Dead still goes down as one of the best zombie films of all time. Because it's not a zombie film. It's a character film that's taking place during a zombie outbreak that just so happens to be a comedy. But it's using those elements of comedy which brings about the human elements of that film, which allows you to care about those characters. If they played every single one of those characters straight, would you care about them? Would you care about whether they survived? But the fact that every single one of them is flawed in some way, but also has a lot of good things about them, make you cared about them. And in that humour, because you laugh with them, when something tragic happens, you feel for them. And I that still maintains that I think that's something that Edgar Wright does really, really, really well. Say, as he done with Scott Pilgrim. I think, again, a very flawed film, but conveyed so much more emotion than so-called other nigh on like Oscar baiting perfect films because the flaws matter.
Yeah, no, I mean, what we mean by flawless is open to debate, I think. Yeah. But I see what you mean, yeah. No,
sorry, that really sounds like I was arguing against what you said, but yeah, sorry.
No, it's the characters are flawed. I mean, the film itself hasn't got any real flaws in the way that it's directed or edited or whatever. But, I agree about... Scott Pilgrim's a good example because I'd say that's a very flawed film, but one that I really enjoy. So I think it's got a lot of trouble with pacing. I think it's got trouble with tone, but it's got enough invention and character work in it that it makes it exceed itself. So it's a good example of one that we really like but is not objectively brilliant, I suppose.
We're not talking The Room, where everyone loves that, but everyone knows it's just dreadful. Yeah.
So what else I've been doing is just to ham-fistedly segue into another discussion. I've been listening. I'm always listening to music. It's funny that we don't really talk about it on here, but I've been listening to Waveshaper, and they're a kind of synth wavy kind of band. So if you imagine kind of like Tangerine Dream around the time of the early 80s kind of thing, and Vangelis doing the Blade Runner soundtrack and stuff like that, synthwave very strongly apes that kind of synth music with no lyrics. Absolutely fantastic. And it took me down a rabbit hole of listening to loads of synthwavy stuff and techno, and there's a load of really good bands around at the moment. But there's my favourite one probably isn't even them. It's probably Perturbator, who are sort of similar, and it's almost like C64 SID stuff, or slightly later than that, Super NES stuff, but just really brilliant, fantastic. It sounds it's hard to describe, but I would strongly recommend giving them a listen. And they kind of sent me back towards Orbital, who I've always been a fan of, and listening to loads of that in the background. And all of these are good for. I'm studying at the moment, and they're great for study because there's no lyrics, so it's just ambient sounds in the background. And so 3 fantastic bands there. So they're Waveshaper, Perturbator, and Orbital. I'd highly recommend giving a listen to.
I've heard of one of them. It's all Orbital. I've heard of them. I haven't heard of the others, but I'll check them out.
Yeah, do it. And Orbital's most recent album's only 2018. They only release an album like once every 8 years or something, and it's well worth a go. But dip into all of them. You might go down a rabbit hole, especially when if you like what people call retro games, stuff from the 80s, then you're going to like those sorts of bits of music.
Yeah, no, I'll give it a go. I'm not a music buff by any stretch of the imagination. I don't know what any of the modern stuff is. I say modern stuff, the popular stuff. I mainly listen to Jenny Lewis or Viola Kylie, who have Jenny Lewis because I just love her music. But that's about as far as it goes for me because, music's a weird one for me. I love music, but I don't know enough of it.
Yeah.
In terms of, I couldn't tell you who, somewhat, or anything. I just listen to it. And as I say, the only one I really care about, and I've made sure I've got everything, is Jenny Lewis.
Yeah. It's funny, isn't it? Because like the older you get, the more effort you have to put into listening to it. Because like when you're young, which is when you really get into music, you've got vast swathes of time where you've got bugger all to do. You got to walk to school, get the bus. You've got like coming home and doing your homework. You got going out with your mates or walking over to where they are. You got all these like vast spaces of time that you just don't have as an adult, and so you have to like really set it aside. So just to do my sounding like an old fart section for the week, but it's definitely true.
But you get older as well, and then you start to realise certain songs, how dark they are as well. For whatever reason, we put on Barbie Girl for my daughter to listen to because she started to get into dolls a little bit, and we put on Barbie Girl. And when I was younger, you'd feel, it's just a fun, cheesy song. But if you listen to the lyrics on that, pretty damn dark.
Yeah.
It's like, same with Dr. Jones as well. I actually listened to a couple more of the Aqua songs, and it's just like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
That's pretty dark. But I also realised, looking back, I actually really, really enjoyed, and I still enjoy, like Britney Spears' early stuff. There's like, say what you want about, I suppose there's a character we could talk about on the actual main podcast one day is what what tragically happened to Britney Spears and the way her mental health was used against her. But in terms of absolute talent of being able to actually produce music, and I know she wrote quite a lot of her own stuff as well, and her performing, if it wasn't for what happened to her, I still think she'd be now the biggest star on the planet.
Yeah.
Because you actually listen to her voice, and you listen to even like the early breakout stuff, such as You Hit Me Baby One More Time and Toxic and stuff like that. It's really good music.
Yeah.
And it's like the sort of stuff when I was younger, I'd go, no, I didn't listen to that. I don't like Britney. What? No. And listen to it, it's actually really good.
Yeah, it's really funny how you can see these things in retrospect, and some of it, I would say a lot of it, is because you kind of go, oh yeah, that's them playing a character, because it's very important in pop particularly to have a character that you embody, and that you know that informs the lyrics and stuff like that. But like there's the stuff with the Smiths and Morrissey, and like all of his songs are kind of, well, particularly the early ones, all of his songs are kind of like characters. It's like, here's this young straight guy who's trying to get with women, so that's obviously not him personally, and all the scenarios and situations. And then when racist stuff was said in passing, then it'd be like, okay, right, that's part of that character, and he's talking about how bad that is. He's it's just a poor character in the play and the novel of his life, but actually it turns out that was him rather than the character. And another big one, that's comparatively recent is Soundgarden and Chris Cornell. Like all of Soundgarden's songs are kind of like, they're very sort of power chordy, they're very heavy. They were lumped in with grunge, but they're actually a metal band. And I used to really love them and still do. But the character was it was like a character of doomy metal and those sort of like dark edges about being in hell and being in a hellscape of a kind of a life. And obviously, thought that was just a kind of Black Sabbath-y thing of, that's theatre. But then, it turns out Chris Cornell was, depressed for his entire life and eventually committed suicide. So, so it is weird to look back in retrospect and go, oh God, yeah, no, it was all there. It wasn't theatre. That was actually their lives.
Yeah, no, definitely. And it's you do get that new appreciation and you kind of, but then I don't know if this is the old fart part where you do hear modern songs and you just look at it and just go, Jesus Christ, it's just turgid. Back in my day, it used to mean something when they sung. But again, I know that my mum would probably have listened to that era that I was growing up listening to, going, oh, back in my day, in like the 60s and 70s, it actually meant something, the music. So are we going to have like the kids of today in about 30 years' time looking back and going, oh, that Cardi B song, at least that meant something?
Yeah.
I'm assuming Cardi B is one of the modern ones. I don't know. So, it's just a name I heard a few weeks ago, so I'm assuming she's modern.
Yeah, I do that. I throw out the odd name now and again so people think I'm still relevant. But only has partial success. But no, you're right, because I think that I've heard anecdotally that the kids today go on about 80s and 90s music loads as like, the pinnacle and being brilliant, which I find odd because they should be embracing their own stuff. But I think the music is out there.
Yeah, the 70s, like listening back to what was in the 70s and going, oh, wow, that was actually some really great stuff. I wish I could listen to that live at the time. So I suppose, it's kind of, I get why kids might look back at the 90s and stuff like that and see that as great.
There's always, every era, there's a kind of 30 years ago thing where it feels just about out of touch enough for it to be cool again. Because in the mid-80s, there was that huge 50s revival. I don't know if you were young enough to remember that. But when I was growing up, there was a huge 50s revival. And
Jive Bunny and everything became popular again, didn't it? And
what did, sorry?
Jive Bunny and things like that as well.
Yeah, that was kind of off the back of it. Yeah, but stuff like Stand By Me got in the charts, and because when the film came out, it always happens. There's always this looking back, but music is great. It's no better or worse than it was now. It's good, but the problem is that the access to it, there's so much of it. There's so much, and the stuff that ends up being charted isn't necessarily reflective of people's tastes. It's just kind of the most middle of the road. So the pop scene isn't kind of like the thing. The thing is like what you find and you talk about on your YouTube channel or your Twitch. It's like what you've discovered, and you have a group coalesce around that, and it doesn't become a big thing out in the wider world. And you'll hear eventually, it's sometimes about like Cardi B or whatever, names like that, and Taylor Swift, but by and large, it's kind of it's much more niche. It's not as mainstream music at the moment.
Yeah, and I think there's probably a lot more, I suppose, you see a lot of bands now where it's not about making money or being super popular. It's like one band I really love listening to, and it is, to be fair, it's someone I know anyway, but it's a band called the Ragamuffins. They're based in the Northwest, and they're an indie pop band, but not quite pop music, I suppose, but they write some really good stuff. And David Jaggs, who's generally, he's been around in that band since day one, despite some other members being in and out, has an absolutely amazing voice, and he writes all his own stuff, and it's absolutely brilliant. But they've never made it big yet. When you hear some of the stuff that goes big, you're just kind of like, how? And so for me, I don't know how Jenny Lewis isn't more popular and stuff like that. But I suppose, but that's music. It is, and I think it's allowed to be more personal than it used to be anyway. But from the takeaway from that is check out the Ragamuffins. They're really good.
Cool. Yeah, and I would say definitely check out. Start with start with Waveshaper. They're a bit softer than Perturbator, but yeah, have a listen to Waveshaper, see what you think. Those are probably very two different bands to listen to, but yeah, go for it.
There you go. So watch some Star Wars.
I would say The Mandalorian is about as everyman as you can get, as long as you like action adventure. So do it. The Boys, probably a little bit more niche, and for over 18s only.
Yeah, and refer to every other person you meet as a.
I do anyway. Yeah.
Now, what you need to do is you need to refer to every other person you meet as a.
It's really funny when you do that accent because it just sounds like you, but a little bit more gruff.
Yeah. Okay, I can't see. I'm that southern. I can't actually do a southern accent.
You can't do any more of a southern accent.
No,
you went slightly across towards the estuary, but you didn't. Yeah, that's good. Oh,
and you've got to do a lot of editing of this one now because there's a lot of swearing.
Oh, yeah. Well, if you hadn't been such a then it wouldn't have come up.
Yeah, there you go. Don't let your kids listen to this one. We should probably put that warning at the start.
Well, I'm going to have to put a heavy spoilers warning up, so yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely, I'll do that as well. Yeah. So, there we go. That was the podcast. So, as usual, thanks for listening. Thanks for being a Patreon. And hopefully you'll be hearing this as a free extra so that we can get the word out there that this is going. So hopefully you didn't think we were chatting complete garbage for half an hour plus. We probably were. We'll accept that. But, feedback, tell us what you thought. And as usual, follow us on Twitter, on Discord if you want to join the chat there. We have lots of YouTube content. Go and look at it. And also, take care of yourself. Stay safe. And enjoy your lockdown.
And bugger off, you